Talvad, Conir. Welcome to full council. Wednesday, the 24th it's not 24th of February, it's 24th of March on my sheet. Good afternoon to you all. Please note this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. We'll go on now to item number 1, which is apologies for absence.
So, Mr. Mayor, I can tell you that we have had formal apology from Councillor Tanya Skinner, and we also need to record that Councillor Julian Amos is not able to be present because of technical difficulties. And if I can just call Councillor David Jones, because I know he has an apology to offer.
Yeah, apologies for Councillor David Isaacs, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks to you, Councillor Jones. Thank you very much. Any other apologies? No.
No, Mr. Mayor.
We'll go on to item 2. I know this is going to be a good one tonight. Declaration of interest.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think probably the way to do this will be, I think the main body of declarations will be with regard to items 5 and 6. So could I, first of all, just see if we can deal with, is there anybody who needs to declare an interest in item 4? If you could raise your hand. Right. So if we can look then at item 5, can I ask everybody to raise their hand if they have there in that item?
Councillor Barrett.
I'm sorry, Councillor Tuvey? No, is there nobody declaring an interest in item 5? No? Okay, then item 6, and I think this is one where I think we may have a number of people declaring. So if you can raise your hands and we'll try and just work through you. If the first person in stating their declaration tells us exactly why, and then we'll just see if everybody else is saying the same thing. And I think the first person I saw was Councillor Dave Hughes. So Councillor Hughes, do you want to just explain your declaration and your reason, and then we'll see if everybody else is saying broadly the same thing. Councillor Hughes, are you there or on mute?
I was on mute, Caris, but I'm not now. Yeah, the business I'm involved in other rate relief grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Now this is just going to be as people come up on my screen. So thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor David Jones.
Similarly, my business has receives this grant, this relief.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Davis.
Thank you, Mountain Officer. I declare personal and prejudicial interest. I'm the responsible person for a third sector organisation that's been in receipt of a non-domestic rate grant previously.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Thomas.
Yes, I'll declare an interest, Caris, personal and prejudicial. I've received grants and we'll have small business relief going forward.
Thank you. I'm now running out of being able to see who has their hands up. Can somebody tell me? Oh, Councillor Declan Salmon.
Yeah. Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I sit on the board of the Leisure Trust, and as a leisure and hospitality industry, they would have received rate relief.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm Colbrand.
Yes, thank you, Caris. Yes, I own a shop which is in receipt of grants.
Thank you. Councillor Jago.
Thank you. Yes, personal and prejudicial interest are for the non-domestic rates. I sit on Bedlin Ogden Community Council, who's been in receipt of rate relief.
Thank you. Is there anybody who is still indicating and who hasn't been called?
Clive Tavy. I need to declare an interest in item 6 because I've got a business and get rates relief as well.
Thank you. Now, is that everybody? Have we had everybody?
I was thinking it would have been easier to ask who didn't want to have it.
Well, I think before we started, we did actually do that. Maya did a quick round of who didn't need to declare. So we had a bit of an idea about numbers, but we just need everybody on the record saying that they are declaring their interest. So thank you very much, everybody. And Mr. Mayor, I think that concludes item 2, although I probably should just go through, having said item 6. Is there anybody who needs to declare in item 7? No. And that's the last one is an information report. So that should be everything. So that's the end of item 2, Mr. Mayor.
I see Councillor Jay, you've got a hand up.
Apologies, Chair. Sorry to go back. I'm not sure if I should declare an interest on item 5, due to me having a second property within the local authority area. It's not vacant though.
Well, the item relates to relief for vacant properties, doesn't it? So
yes,
if you are claiming that discount.
No, I'm not at present, so I'm okay. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, so Mr. Mayor, you can proceed.
Thank you, Carys. We'll go on to item number 3, minutes of the previous meetings, to prove as accurate the minutes of the meetings. Items 3A to 3H. Do we have a mover for this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move those minutes.
Do we have a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second the minutes.
Thank you. Can we please vote on this, please?
And if you can just go straight to voting in favour for this one, please. I think there are about 3 people who haven't yet. There are 2 people who haven't yet managed to register. Just check. Yeah, I think that's complete now, and that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If everybody can put their hands down, please.
I was on mute, sorry. We're going to item number 4, pay policy statement. To consider the report of the interim chief executive, I'd like to hand over to Councillor Andrew Barry. Could I invite you to address the council, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pay policy statement 2021-22. So this is our legal requirement to state our annual pay policy statement for 21-22 by the 31st of March. It can be seen at Appendix 1. This year's National Joint Committee pay negotiations will begin in May this year, with any change backdated to the 1st of April. Myself, Fran Donnelly and the leader have attended several meetings of the National Joint Committee to progress the issue, and as members will know, we hold a pay reward reserve which currently stands at an equivalent of 1.75 pay increase. Our employee costs within the authority represent nearly 30% of the overall budget in this coming financial year, which equates to just shy of £40 million. Before I move to the recommendations, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to take a moment in this week of remembrance, 1 year on from our initial lockdown, to say no pay policy will ever convey our gratitude and thanks to our staff for the gargantuan effort over this past year, to all those employed in every part of this authority from our frontline services to our administrative staff, both full and part-time, to our senior leadership team and interim chief executive. On behalf of our residents, I say, and I'm sure on behalf of all members, a heartfelt thank you for the effort over the last year. I now move to the recommendations, Mr. Mayor. 2.1, the pay policy 2021-22 be implemented from the 1st of April 2021, be approved, and 2.2, delegated authority be given to the head of human resources for any future amendments to this statement in consultation with the portfolio member be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I second that, and in doing so, can I just echo everything that Councillor Barry has just put to the council as well, and fully support all of his comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members, any questions?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Members, any comments?
Yes, Councillor Chris Davis, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, I just wanted to commend the authors of this report this evening. A huge amount of work has gone into the preparation of this, pay policy statement, and in particular to the inclusion of a number of additional appendices. And I think for me, and I'm hoping councillors will agree, I think what this shows is a really transparent effort on behalf of the authority as one of the biggest employers in the area, but obviously as a public sector employer, showing transparency with regards to outlining the distinction between the highest paying members of staff and the lowest paying members of staff, and just being very open and transparent so people don't have to go searching for this information. All of the pay scales are all set out really nicely and really neatly. In closing, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to echo the comments from Councillor Barry and from the leader in, lending my thanks to all of our staff across the organisation, in particular, obviously being the cabinet member for social services, to all of the social care staff, throughout the pandemic, who have and continue to provide, an exemplary service to all of the residents of the county borough. And just thanks to everybody. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd. Cheers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
Mr.
Chris.
Councillor Darren Roberts.
Yeah, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, it would be remiss of me not to pass comment on this. We all know that our staff do an incredible job, whether it be behind the scenes or on the front line and out in the streets. This year's been, or the last year has been a particularly tough year for everybody concerned. And I'd like to echo the comments made by my member colleagues earlier, Councillor Barry, Councillor Mitten and Councillor Chris Davis. Exceptional efforts been made by everybody, and I fully support this pay policy. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any more questions?
So, no, Mr. Mayor, I think that was, we were on comments, and there aren't any more indicating to speak.
Yeah, no, well, we haven't done comment. We're on comments now. Any more comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Well, we put it to the vote then, please.
So can we start with all members who wish to abstain? Could you please show now? Thank you. All members who wish to vote against, can you please show now? Thank you. And finally, all those voting in favour, can you please show now? And that's complete. That's complete, and that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, guys. Right, we go on to my hand. We go on to item number 6.
Sorry, number 5.
Oh, sorry, turn to many pages. Yeah. We go on to item number 5, council tax discounts for long-term and unoccupied properties. I'll ask Councillor Andrew Barry to address the council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. the council tax discounts for long-term unoccupied properties. There are a few amendments to the report, which I'll highlight on the way through. This is our annual legal requirement to determine discounts applied to both long-term unoccupied, and in 1.1 it should read and unfurnished properties, and unoccupied furnished properties. The long-term unoccupied and unfurnished properties have always had 0% discount applied, along with no discount being applied to unoccupied unfurnished properties. The legislation allows up to 100% council tax premium to be applied to both long-term and unoccupied furnished and unfurnished properties. The legislation provides for 12-month notification to properties should the authority decide to apply that 100% premium. So for the premium to be applied for 2022-23, the determination is required by the 31st of this month. As with last year's debate at full council, there are issues to applying the premium that have been highlighted between paragraphs 3.7 to 3.9. Consequently, the recommendations of 2.1 and 2.2 are 2.1, the determination to continue the level of 0% discount effective from the 1st of April 2021 for all Class C long-term unoccupied properties as defined in Section 12 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 as amended be approved. And there is an amendment in 2.2. The recommendation states the determination to apply no premium in the 22-23 financial year in respect of long-term unoccupied, and it should again say there, and unfurnished properties and unoccupied unfurnished dwellings be approved, and this position to be reviewed in 2022. That should say, not 2021, in relation to financial year 23-24. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Can we have a seconder for that, please?
Yes, I second that, Mr. Mayor.
Right, can we go on to any questions? Councillor Darren Roberts, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If my memory serves me right, and it doesn't always because I got a shocking memory, but I think this discount of 0% was introduced either 2 or 3 years ago. Now, obviously, there's a financial benefit to the local authority there, but I think the overarching reason for reducing the discount to 0% is to get as many properties back in use as possible, because some, not all, unoccupied properties are an eyesore in our communities and our streets. Like I say, some, not all. So my question is, do we have any information or any data to suggest that by reducing it to 0%, that it has improved the number of unoccupied and unfurnished properties? Thank you.
Councillor Mitten.
I think we need an answer to that. Apologies, Darren. I just need to let the monitoring officer know that I've had a message from 4 of my colleagues that their laptops have decided to automatically restart. They are going to try and rejoin the meeting as soon as possible. Apologies, Councillor Roberts. I'm sure an officer will come in and answer that for you now, but I need to let the monitoring officer know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader.
Yes, so I think Alan Owen is hopefully going to be able to answer the question, and then once we've dealt with that, we'll just see who we've lost and whether they're able to get back in.
I suggest you talk slow then, Alan.
Try my best, Councillor Roberts. I haven't got the exact figures to hand, but what I can inform members is that our empty home strategy is currently being renewed and will be coming to council. I think it's in May, and all the relevant figures over the last 4 or 5 years will be included in that, so that we'll be able to look at the pattern of how property has become empty, remained empty, with a commentary on how many have been brought back into use by our environmental health housing team over the same period.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Obviously, welcome that information. It's okay for us as members to be approving these discounts and new policies and any amendments, but it's also important for us to have the feedback and to see what impact, if any, has come from those decisions that are being made. So yeah, thank you, Alan, and I welcome that report in May or in due course.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, the people who seem to have had difficulty, I'm not sure whether we are getting them back on.
Monitoring officer is Councillor Scott Thomas, Sherelle Yago, Clive Tivy, Lee Davis is now back, Scott is now back. So I don't know what happened, but we lost quite a few, and they are trying to come back into the meeting.
And Councillor John Thomas.
And John Thomas, yeah.
Yes, and I think you indicated that Councillor Clive Tivy as well. Mr. Mayor, you may want to proceed. I think Councillor David Jones is indicating a question.
Yeah. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may be a bit pedantic, but on page 58 on 3.2, there's a sentence that starts, "The discount must apply to all such properties during the course of a financial year and cannot be incremented, although it could be varied between electoral divisions," which set me thinking, should there not be a piece in the recommendations that these measures will be throughout the county borough? That just throws a question up to me, although it could be varied between electoral divisions, just to say that this will be a borough-wide policy.
I'm not sure whether there's whether anybody is able to answer that question.
Carys, do we have Mark Price with us?
I'm with you, Andrew.
There we are. Can you answer that, Mark, please?
Yes. The policy is council-wide. The reference is made to that of Bedinnog because there's a variance in the charge because of the community council. So there's a slightly different amount payable for those within the Bedlog and Trelewis area to that of the other 11 parishes within Merthyr. So that's what that reference is there. But the policy is council-wide, for all the 12 parishes within Merthyr as a whole.
Thank you, Mark. That does clarify it, but it did raise a question with me because of the way it was written. Perhaps it should be clarified that it is relative to Bedlinog rather than any of the rest of the county borough.
Yeah, the only difference is a slight difference in the charge because of the community council down in Bedlinog, but it's in reference to the whole 12 parishes within Merthyr.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Leader.
Monitoring officer, again, apologies, it's regarding a technical issue. I know that Councillor John Thomas and Councillor Chris Barry have asked, one in chat, one in a message, because several members had a blip and had to restart, are they still allowed to vote on this item, monitoring officer?
I'm afraid they're not, because they have missed that part of the debate. I know that's unfortunate because it was a technical issue. It was through no fault of their own at all, but we have to proceed with the meeting because it's a public meeting which has started in accordance with the public requirements, and they have missed the questions that have been asked. So I'm afraid everybody, this is where we get to the matters that I started the announcement with. We have to put it on everybody's own judgment. If you missed any part of the debate, so any part of the questions that have been asked, then you will not be able to vote.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to get some clarity on that myself then, because I came in towards the back end of what Alan was saying. So would I then have to declare that I can't also vote there?
I'm afraid you won't be able to vote. Yes, if you missed what Alan Owen was responding to, then you've missed that part of the debate, and therefore you wouldn't be able to vote.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Thank you.
Okay, members, are there any more questions?
Councillor David, Councillor David Jones has put his hand down now. I think, unless you've got
Yes,
another question, Councillor Jones. No, that's
No.
fine.
If not,
There
any,
are no other questions indicated, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Members, any comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Can we put to the vote then, please?
So can I please ask anybody who is seeking to abstain on this matter, can you please show now? Thank you. Any member voting against, can you please show now? Thank you. And members voting in favour, can you please show now? And I think that is everybody, aside from the people who lost contact during that item, and that is carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mount Officer. We'll go on to item number 6.
And Mr. Mayor, if anybody therefore who has declared an interest can turn off their camera and microphone, and then we should be able to get started on this item. And can I also ask that everybody put their hand down from the previous item, unless they've got a query now. Councillor Gareth Richards, have you got a query now?
Error, sorry, Carys.
It's all right. Yes, Mr. Mayor. So if you're happy that everybody's ready, then you can proceed.
Thank you. Item number 6, non-domestic rates, retail, leisure and hospitality rate relief in Wales 2021 to 2022. I'd like to ask Councillor Andrew Barry to address the council, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Non-domestic rates, retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief in Wales 2021-22. In this week of the 12-month anniversary of the first lockdown, we have a further tranche of support for our business community. The relief will be provided to retail, leisure and hospitality properties. The relief is being offered from the 1st of April 2021 and will be available until the 31st of March 2022. The relief offers a discount of 100% as a reduction on the non-domestic rates bill for the business property to all eligible premises. The scheme will apply to businesses with a rateable value of £500,000 or less. The authority will be reimbursed by Welsh Government under legislation described at paragraph 1.4. Details of the qualifying businesses are found within section 5 and section 6. And as an authority, we will be notifying eligible businesses that they qualify for the relief and that their bills will be recalculated automatically, with the businesses having to do nothing by way of application. Just some figures. This tranche of support will go to circa 460 businesses and equates to a total just shy of £7 million. The total we've paid out in rates or rates grants over the last 12 months, I think it's pertinent to look at that today because of where we sit, is just over £35 million, which is staggering when you think of it, really. The figure doesn't include the discretionary grants, obviously freelancer grants, Valleys Task Force grants, that takes us to just shy of £40 million. And I think, if I can, Mr. Mayor, it's only right at this point, and as members, we take a moment to thank our staff yet again for the unbelievable achievement of these figures. When we sat down 12 months ago to work out how, as an authority, we were going to achieve and deliver these grants, I don't think any of us thought we would be looking at continued financial support 12 months on. Where the NHS has its heroes, supermarkets have their till operators and shelf fillers, taxi drivers, bus drivers, care workers, our heroes sit behind desks and walk the streets of this county borough. Of course, we appreciate Steve Jones, Mike Parry and Alan Owens, Chris Long, but along with these, we have staff working late into the night, weekends, to make sure the authority has become the shining light in how to deliver effectively as a delivery mechanism for this funding. In this case, the likes of Elaine Warren, Matthew Harrison, Mark Price, who I know is on the meeting, James Walters, Mags Davis, Lance Whiteley, Ryan Barry, Tracy Davis, Alison Reddy, Dan Buffton, all from Regen there, Paul Lewis. You may not know those names, but that's the grants team. And unbelievable performance by them all. Revenues and benefits, trading standards, environmental planning, all working seamlessly together like a well-oiled machine. And all the staff involved, I think all members on this meeting today would like to say thank you to each and every member of the staff involved in these grants on behalf of the business communities of the County Borough, as they've given them the very best chance of survival through this pandemic. I'll take the recommendations, Mr. Mayor, at 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1, the implementation of the retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief scheme in accordance with the rules described in this report be approved. And 2.2, having been agreed that it is reasonable for the council to make this decision having regard to the interests of persons liable to pay council tax to set by the council the application of sections of the Local Government Finance Act 1988 as regard to the herediments described above, in accordance with the rules described in relation to those herediments, be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. The seconder, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in seconding, again, I just want to echo Councillor Barry's comments there. I won't repeat that list, but what a wonderful array of staff, you know, and really ensuring and echoing that everybody is really counted for. And we are so grateful of the work that they have done over the last 12 months. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second that report.
Thank you, Leader. Members, any questions?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Members, any comments?
Yes, Councillor Darren Roberts, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to echo the comments made by Councillor Barry and Councillor Bitton. You know, when you actually reel off the names like Councillor Barry did, it just goes to show, you know, the strength that we've got within the team. Because obviously I know a few of them myself, but yeah, not just the team that that was mentioned, but everybody within the local authority that has actually touched some part of the grants that's been distributed, because it is a mammoth task that's been rolled out, and I know that as a local authority we have excelled in doing so. I'd also like to give thanks, Mr. Mayor, if I can, to the Welsh Government, because obviously the funding has come from them ultimately, and I know that compared to the central government in Westminster, the level of support by the Welsh Government has been quite favourable in some instances. So, you know, it is a joint effort. It does show that local authorities like Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council can work very successfully with our colleagues in Welsh Government. So, yeah, big effort done by everybody, and again, like to thank all concerned for delivering these grants to the businesses that desperately needed them and still do desperately need them following the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Members, any more comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Can we put it to the vote then, please?
So again, can I ask all those who would wish to abstain, can you please show now? Thank you. All those who would wish to vote against, please show now. Thank you. And all those voting in favour, please show now. Thank you. And that is carried, Mr. Mayor. I think we just then need to get everybody back into the meeting who had displayed their interest. And Mr Mayor, just while everybody's coming back, I was just going to say to Councillor Michelle Jones to put her hand down, but she's managed to do that. And I think you have everybody back now, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carys. We're going to item number 7, suitable temporary accommodation for the homeless clients. I'd like to ask Councillor Geraint-Thomas to address the council, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this will be the final report I'll be bringing for the housing section, and Councillor Rogers will be taking over from any future reports coming in this direction. Can I just thank all the members and all the staff and officers that came to the workshop, and all the hard work that has taken place over the last 12 months as well. Before I start, obviously this is a short-term solution for suitable temporary accommodation for homeless clients. The report outlines the increasing pressures on the local authority's homelessness service and the challenge faced in discharging the council's statutory duties under the Housing Wales Act 2014, with specific reference to homelessness. Following changes made to the priority need test within the Housing Wales Act 2014 as the direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the council now has a legal duty to offer and provide temporary accommodation to everyone presenting as homeless and secure suitable permanent accommodation thereafter. We currently have 137 people in temporary accommodation. The council has become over-reliant on the use of bed and breakfast accommodation to discharge this duty. The practice is costly and the accommodation is deemed inappropriate by Welsh Government. Each of these issues are discussed in detail in the report. If I can ask members just to look at page 92 and 5.2, just to have a look at how the costs have increased over the last year and since the pandemic. As you can see, in 2019-20, it was £130,000 per annum, and is currently just over £920,000 for this year. Now, where we are fortunate, the bill currently is being picked up by Welsh Government through the Hardship Fund. Julie James has assured Cabinet members for housing that this will continue into 6 months of the next financial year, but we don't know what's going to happen after that. So at 1.4, the report outlines a viable alternative option or supplementary depending on case demand at any one time, which is less expensive, more appropriate, and reduces the risk to the local authority. When the cost proposed is up to 40% less than what we're currently paying at this moment in time. And I think we have to be very careful that in 6 months' time we don't have a cliff edge, because we will have an expense on our hands then. So if I can go to the recommendations, Mr Mayor, 2.1, the officer recommendation for the council to enter into another contract with D2 Property Co or another private sector provider of accommodation where appropriate for an initial period of at least 2 years to increase its use of houses in multiple occupation, HMO, from 2 to 3 plus be approved. 2.2, the specification that each unit of accommodation shall not have more than 5 bedrooms and hence 5 homeless clients accommodated at any one time be approved. 2.3, the provision that officers shall decide upon the location of such units in consultation with the Public Protection Unit, PPU, of South Wales Police, and in consultation with local members to ensure locations are safe and appropriate be approved. 2.4, the Housing Solutions Team objectives of increasing its use of HMOs for temporary accommodation to help meet the council statutory duty be approved. And in moving this, Mr Mayor, I'd like to just say again, you know, this is short term. No, we really need more houses built in Merthyr going forward for the medium and the long term. So I so move, Chair.
Mr Mayor, I'm pleased to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you.
Members, any questions?
Councillor Clive Jones, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have 3 questions. The first is on page 89, where the first recommendation has been read out by Councillor Thomas, 2.1, where it refers to the council entering another contract with D2P, another private sector provider of accommodation, or another sector provider accommodation, where applicable, for an initial period of at least 2 years, to increase its use of houses in multiple occupation from 2 to 3+ be approved. What I would like to know, Mr. Mayor, is it says that from 2 to 3 and the plus sign is there after 3. So how many extra houses of multiple occupation are there likely to be during that period of 2 years?
Alan, are you going to answer that?
Yeah, it's difficult to say, Councillor Jones. This is just a projection, but obviously it's going to be based on need, as Councillor Thomas has outlined in the summary of the report. We separate unprecedented levels of homelessness at the moment, which have been aggravated by the fact that obviously we have this enhanced duty to make sure that that we use temporary accommodation. What I'd probably like to do is to call in Suzanne Lewis-Abbott, who can perhaps enhance our understanding of that.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Yeah, I'm back to sort of Clive's question around the number, and just to echo what Alan's mentioned, our view is that we want to place people in permanent accommodation, permanent or longer term accommodation than temporary. As Geraint alluded to, this is a temporary measure, but given the numbers that we're experiencing at the moment and the legislative changes, we see this as an option to deal with the current level of demand with a view to help us access our social housing grant programmes and other external grant funding programmes to build more social housing. So this is very much in partnership with everything else that the department are trying to achieve strategically to increase our housing supply. So just in perspective, we historically had around 1.3 to 1.7 million annually through a social housing grant fund. This year we've been allocated 4.3 for the year 21-22. So the plan is, and the priority is very much long-term housing. What the initial plan is around the temporary accommodation is we see at least one more HMO. Potentially another 2. We don't envisage having large numbers, because longer term that's not what we're looking to achieve. However, the temporary accommodation legislation that has changed does mean our statutory obligation. It looks as if Welsh Government would not renege on the changes to the legislation even when the public health emergency ends. So this is something we are going to see for the foreseeable. So it would reduce the bill, but also provide the suitable accommodation that we are obliged as a statutory nature to provide.
Thank you. And just a supplementary there, while Suzanne is there answering, and just to go back to part of the resolution in 2.3, because you have stated that the South Wales Police are going to be consulted wherever these multiple units of occupation are going to be placed, in conjunction with the local ward members. So wherever this happens, in any one of the 11 wards, both the police and the local ward members will be consulted.
Yes, Councillor. It's something that throughout the pandemic we've had quite a close working relationship as part of a cell group, which consists of health, police colleagues, third sector colleagues and public sector, where we come together to have a look at the best sort of resolution for those who have a wide range of needs. So alongside our police colleagues, we will be working with them to identify the best suited communities, but any property that is identified as a potential, we would initially meet with ward members and circulate this information to police prior to any decisions being taken. And alongside that, I suppose what I wanted to reassure is if individuals have complex needs, alongside this, we're utilising our housing support grant funds to provide supported accommodation for the wide-ranging needs of the population presenting. So if somebody has needs and they're not ready for independent accommodation, then those are not the clients that we'd be looking to put within a house of multiple occupation.
Thank you for that answer. Can I take you then to page 92 and paragraph 5.6? Because there it states in the years 1920 there were only 47 units of single person accommodation available in total between all 4 registered social landlords. Is there going to be an increase in that figure in view of the huge problems that we've got during the next financial year now starting on the 1st of April?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I suppose I go back to the point about the social housing grant finance. So not only have we had a sizable increase to try and cope with some of this additional demand, but also what we're trying to do is be creative around the funding that we're getting through. So we are linking in with our environmental health colleagues to have a look at empty properties. We have recently recruited or we're in the process of recruiting a private sector officer to engage better with the private sector landlords for those who it is affordable for. And also alongside what we're doing with the private sector as well, we are linking quite closely with our regeneration colleagues. So we're maximising any grants that we get in through a social housing grant. What we're trying to do is add finance to our regeneration colleagues so we can increase the amount or number of units across the borough. So we're not utilising all of our social housing grant on affordable housing supply, but we're also accessing other external pots to match. So trying to maximise as much as possible the finance into Merthyr to provide as much affordable housing, and that it won't just be social housing. So we'll be looking at other sectors also.
Thank you again for that answer. And my last question, still on the same page 92, and it's the one at the bottom, 5.8, which was referred to by the Cabinet member, Councillor Geraint-Thomas. It says, without direct action to find alternative sources of temporary accommodation, the projected expenditure for bed and breakfast for 21-22 is over 1 million, based on the current demand, which continues to rise. Now, as I understand it, from what Councillor Thomas has said, the Welsh Government have assured the Council that they will cover this for the first 6 months of this year because of the COVID pandemic. But after 6 months, I think there lies a real issue. When that stops, and if it stops in September, the council are likely to have to bear the full cost. Is the Welsh Local Government Association still in active discussion with the Welsh Government to come to an agreement for financial assistance to cover the enormous cost of this legal requirement to assist to house the homeless? And how far have the discussions taken so far?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I've just come back from maternity leave. I know there are discussions ongoing. I don't know whether Alan will want to come in on anything that I haven't been included on. There are discussions and lobbying ongoing, and Welsh Government are also, I suppose it's key to say, at the end of the 6 months, at the moment, that's being reviewed. So it's we have no assurances, so absolutely we need to plan for worst case scenario, but it is under review currently. Aside from that, there are opportunities potentially to look at what we expect would be a phase 3 funding to provide additional monies for accommodation. Again, these things are going to take time. They're not going to support us overnight, but that's as much as I'm aware. There's been lots of lobbying happening, and there is the discussions are ongoing in terms of what happens. Is it at cliff edge at September, or will it be under further review?
Yeah, I can add to that, Councillor Jones. The discussions with the WLG are ongoing. Councillor Thomas, up until obviously the change of portfolio, sits on the cabinet members for housing group, which has is facilitated by the WLGA and has regular ministerial membership of that group. We've made 2 presentations to the assurance board with all the statutory partners, including Welsh Government, there to give a detailed description of the impact on Merthyr Tydfil. Councillor Thomas has made direct representations with myself to our AM and MP, especially MS now. Sorry, I forgot about the change there. About the position that we've been put in by this change of legislation. Obviously, we want to support the most vulnerable and the most disadvantaged in our communities, but obviously that comes with a substantial price to the local authority. So that's what we want to make sure is catered for, and it's not just the cost and the price to local government, but obviously there needs to be additional funding for the relevant support services as well. In addition to social service, the health requirement from the University Health Board is also quite substantial.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your detailed answers.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Declan Salmon has indicated a question.
Yep. Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clive has touched on this, but I'll come to that in a second. But first of all, I'd just like to say that I understand the difficulties faced by the housing team and mention that they are doing a fantastic job. Now, at 6.6 of the report, it mentions there's a high volume of homeless clients with multiple complex issues. This can often exacerbate antisocial behaviour problems. And in the recommendations, as Clive has touched on, at 2.3, it says that the locations will be decided on in consultation with local members to ensure locations are safe and appropriate. Now, you mentioned consultation, but I just want clarification that if a councillor has reservations about a proposed property and doesn't want that property used because of its location, then that property won't be used. And that's just if one councillor has those feelings.
The consultation obviously is going to be a discussion between all the interested parties. Obviously, if there are valid reasons within the community why a property is not suitable, then that'll be discussed with the ward members and with the relative statutory representatives. Rather than make it hard and fast rules, councillor, I think we need to see how this process goes. But I think, as I reminded councillors in our workshop some weeks ago, ultimately this isn't something that the council wants to do because it's a very socially conscious organisation. This is a statutory duty that's been placed on us. So however we come to those decisions collectively, we need to discharge our statutory duty in these matters. But what I'd like to do, Councillor Salmon, is to proceed with this process, and we can review it as we go along based on any issues that we're facing collectively.
Can I just come in there just a moment, just to remind all members that in being consulted about any of those issues, you will be bound by the Code of Conduct, and you will need to remember the duties that you have under the Code of Conduct. So it wouldn't just be a question of somebody saying, I don't want that near me. It would need to be for valid reasons as part of your role as a councillor, if you were going to be saying that you objected to the siting of any of these developments or properties in your electoral division.
Thank you, Caris. I'd just like to say that we've had something before come through with the council. We were made certain promises. I had issues that I had to deal with on a Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night. And that was weekend every weekend for a couple of months. I understand the code of conduct, but we are also elected by residents of our wards, and they are the ones that we answer to at the end of the day.
Absolutely right, and I think that's all part of this consultation process, is to make sure that the views of residents are fed in, but we'll come back to that balance then about our duties and how we discharge them. But hopefully this process, which provides for that consultation, is going to manage that properly, so that we will be able to do both things, be able to fulfil our duties and manage our duties to our residents as well.
Lovely. Thank you, Monitoring Officer. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Councillor Kevin Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to it's on page 95 under an alternative solution. It's 8.2, where it goes on to describe the two properties currently held in Plymouth Street and the Town Ward. Now, 8.2 says there's CCTV camera and D2 Propco staff check these recordings on a daily basis and report any issues immediately back to the Housing Solutions team. I was wondering whether there has been any instances reported back and what these typically look like. That's to the Housing Solutions team. And also I would like to know if there's been any where there's been any feedback to Town Ward councillors as well, just to get an idea of how these two properties are running.
As Town Ward member, would it be okay if I answered that? The property in Plymouth Street, Councillor Gibbs, it's in a very well established residential area, quiet, and we've had 2 armed response vehicles turning up there, which is unheard of in that area. We have another one on the Twing Hill where there's open drug taking and smoking. So we've been involved, and I've got to say that D2 were very, very swift to deal with both incidents. But that doesn't detract from the fact that those incidents have happened in very well established areas, and the armed response unit resulted in a removal of a resident and imprisonment, I believe. It's the cohort of people that we have that attract these type of people. The issue really for us in Town Ward is that they want to be close to the support mechanisms, and the support mechanisms are all in the town centre, and the town centre then becomes a honeypot for all of those undesirables that we don't wish to see in our town centre. And I know it's a highly complex issue, but I don't believe that this is the only solution. I know there are other things going on, but for me, there's an urgency to it as well, in that, you know, we've filled up all our hotels and our bed and breakfasts. In 2018, I think it was, we had 1 million visitors. In 2019, we had 2 million visitors. When lockdown is lifted, to whatever extent, we're told that staycations are the thing. We've become an attractive area for visitors, and all our beds are blocked through this housing policy. So our experience in Town Ward, I have to say quite honestly, is not good. And I really do think the questions by Councillor Clive Jones, by Declan Salmon, and by yourself, Councillor Gibbs, are really getting to the heart of the issue. There is no easy solution for this. The one plea that I have is that if Julie James, the Minister, will support us because 1.8 million equates to 7% on our council tax. That is unsustainable, completely unrealistic. So our experience is poor. I understand it's complex, but I share the sentiments of all other members that have contributed here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I think Alan Owen was going to come in and just answer the other part of Councillor Gibbs' question.
Yeah, obviously, because of the complexity of the needs of some of these clients, which I believe we now have a total angle on, we have a better understanding on, and we have a full profile of the client group that we're dealing with, because of the specialist nature of the staff that we've recruited and increased our capacity over the last year. There has been an awful lot of success with these clients who have responded extremely well, but unfortunately, complexity being complexity, there have been some instances, and I can totally relate to the experience that Councillor Salmon had in the very early days of our housing first project. So just to reiterate, really, yes, we've had a lot of success. We have had some incidents where we have had issues, but to go back to my point earlier, as an officer team, we're providing a potential short-term solution to the issues that we're facing, to make sure that we actually comply with our statutory duty as laid down in the new regulations. It isn't easy, but I think we have all those issues as much as we can under control.
No, thank you very much for both replying there. And the point, what I was trying to get out with was how quickly and these incidents are dealt with. But as Councillor Barry has alluded to, when an issue did arise, I understand Duncan Evans sorted it out properly. So thank you very much for both of you for your answers.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbs. Members, are there any more questions?
Councillor Gibbs, is your hand up again for another question? No, it down again. Thank you.
One more down. Sorry, Gareth.
Members, can we have any comments, please?
Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's been a very good and interesting debate and question session on this very difficult issue. And I understand the real difficulties that housing staff have got. And I honestly commend what all the staff have been involved with in the last year in having to deal with an altered legislation which makes it a legal duty on councils to deal with the question of homelessness. But when we are talking about, for example, multiple house of multiple occupation, and when we come to applications for that, it's a very delicate balancing act of finding a suitable location, and it will come down to that at the end of the day. Thank you for that.
Councillor Darren Roberts, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the previous report, I was praising Welsh Government for the level of support financially that they've given to not just Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council, but to all local authorities. As an authority, obviously, we have to deal with our statutory duties in the change in legislation for the homeless within the county borough. So, comment from me is, Mr. Mayor, I would be very disappointed if we didn't get the necessary financial support post 6 months should things change. You know, it's okay for us to do the right thing with those statutory duties, and it is right and proper that we do that. However, you know, as a responsible local authority, we got to make sure that we have the financial support to be able to do that as well. So just a little comment from me that I would be disappointed post 6 months if that support didn't come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roberts.
Two people indicating to speak now, one of them being Councillor Geraint Thomas, who would close the debate. So with your permission, I think you probably need to skip through to Councillor Chris Davis. Okay,
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to share, you know, it's really lovely to have this kind of debate on such an emotive and really important issue for the county borough. I think it's fair to say the Welsh Government policy, the position is aspirational, probably well intended, but I think has not thought through the consequences for what are a very chaotic group of individuals that, you know, reside in our communities, need our help and need our support. I've recently been appointed as the chair of the Cwmtaf Morgannwg Regional Partnership Board, which considers all of the health and social care support needs for the communities of Merthyr Tydfil, Bridgend and Rhondda Cynon Taf. Alongside the Public Service Board, I think it's fair to say that this can't be and isn't a single agency issue. Can't just be, although we are statutorily charged with homelessness and the duties around that, you know, the individuals concerned come quite often across the radar of the police. They come across the agency of drug and alcohol agencies. They come across the radar of the health board. So this is something that when I meet with Mark Brace, who's now the chair of the Public Service Board, is something that I will be chatting with him about how the Regional Partnership Board and how the Public Service Board can work together to see this alongside mental health, which is another thing that falls out of this, as a priority for both of those. I was at the Offender Management Board meeting last week where there was a presentation on this very matter. It's not a Merthyr Tydfil issue, it's an issue for all 22 local authorities in Wales. I think, as Councillor Jones has said, I would hope there'll be the commitment from the Welsh Government around supporting the priority of need if that's going to change. But what we do, Mr. Mayor, is we don't get this right. A chaotic group of individuals who've got very complex needs, we fail them if we don't get this right, and we fail our communities as well if we don't get this right. So I look forward to working with Councillor Rogers on this jointly as two cabinet members, taking this important and integral piece of work forward. And I think what we can do, there's some great stuff happening. There's some health teams that have been set up, and maybe Alan and Susie, for some of that work that's ongoing with Cwmtaf Morgannwg Health Board and Public Health Wales, with people like Claire Bynan and the likes. There's some health professionals that are coming on board across the region as well. Maybe we could do a members workshop to look at the trauma-informed work that's already going, but that's got to be our direction of travel to support this cohort of individuals and ultimately support our communities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think next would be Councillor Declan Salmon.
Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, I understand the difficulties faced by the housing team and the great work that they do. Unfortunately, when 5 properties were mentioned and put to the 4 ward councillors in the Dowlais and Pant area, only one of those properties was deemed suitable, and subsequently the D2 properties pulled out of it because it was going to cost them a little bit too much money. So when it comes down to it, it's all about money for that business, D2 properties, and I've got concerns. What happens these properties at the end of the 2-3 year cycle that we're signing up for tonight? What exactly are those properties going to be used for? Because at the end of the day, it's a commercial business. The D2 properties run, and they're going to want people in there, and I have reservations about who will be in there then. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think that the only person left then to speak is Councillor Geraint Thomas, and that will close the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like I said when I opened up with the report, this is challenging. And I believe it's the most challenging thing we're looking at the moment in this local authority. You know, this is a short-term solution. It's not the long-term solution. We know that we need more social housing, and quickly, you know, from 1 bedroom to 3, 4, 5 bedroom houses with some of the size of the families that we are dealing with. And it's something that we really got to get some spades in the ground quickly and get on with this piece of work. We haven't had a big social housing building program in Merthyr for a long time, and we're overdue. When we got 2,000 people on our waiting list and our own children can't get houses in this town, there's something wrong. So we certainly got to do it. But like Councillor Davis is correct, you know, the people that we are dealing here are some of the most chaotic, complex and vulnerable people in Merthyr Tydfil, and it's only right that we support them as well to try and give them a good start and a good outcomes in their lives. And a home is much part of that. And I share the aspirations of Welsh Government and Julie James on that. I think everyone deserves a home. It's a human right. And so, you know, I hope you all support this report going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Councillor Thomas has closed the debate, so we'll go now to the vote, please.
Yes, so can I ask then, please, anybody who wishes to abstain on this item, could you please show now? Thank you. Anybody wishing to vote against this item, please show now. Thank you. Anybody voting in favour of this item, please show now. Can everybody just be sure that they have cast their vote, because I think we may be just slightly short. Yes, then that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Monitor Officer. We'll go on to item 8, annual equality report. This is an information report, so we don't discuss that. Go on to item 9, to deal with any urgent business correspondence. I have no urgent business. Item 10, to receive communication received by His Worship the Mayor. There are no communications. So thank you all. Thank you very much. That was the last item on the agenda. So the meeting is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor.